Hello, and welcome to Midnight Affairs Tales. Your support means everything to us. We'd love to know, which geographical location are you joining from today? At home on the go, share with us below now. Let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. Helicopter over the chapel. The first sound was the chop of blades. Guests turned their heads as the wind kicked up dust outside the white-paneled country chapel. Women clutched their dresses. The groom squinted. The bride's smile faltered. A black hawk dropped lower, its shadow slicing across the lawn like a blade. No one knew what to do. The organist stopped mid-note. The pastor turned toward the doors. Then, slowly, the side hatch opened. A man stepped out. Full uniform, combat boots, dress blues, bars on his chest, cold eyes scanning the crowd. Emily's knees gave slightly. Her grip on Brandon's hand loosened. Jack Malone didn't look at her. He didn't need to. He walked with slow, deliberate steps. Dust curled around his boots. The only sound was the low hum of the chopper behind him, like a warning still echoing. Brandon's jaw clenched. What the hell is he doing here? No one answered. Jack stopped in front of them, pulled off his gloves, pulled a document from his inside pocket, handed it to the groom. Brandon Hayes, you are hereby dishonorably discharged, effective immediately. Signed by me, your commanding officer. Gasps. Emily stared like she'd seen a ghost. Jack. What is this? He turned to her, finally. His eyes didn't blink. This is your wedding. Enjoy it. He turned and walked back to the helicopter. The crowd erupted. A woman fainted. Someone dropped a phone. And behind it all, Emily fell to her knees in her perfect white dress, crying. 12 months ago, she kissed that same man goodbye in an airport, promising forever. Now, he just destroyed everything and didn't even stay to watch it burn. But how did it come to this? Hey everyone, we just crossed 4,000 subscribers on Midnight Affairs Tales. I seriously can't thank you enough for all the love and support. Your love for deep, emotional, and shocking stories is what made this channel what it is today. Now, I've started something new. It's called Betrayal Stories Lab. It's where I'll be sharing even crazier stories, full of betrayal, twists you won't see coming, and endings you won't forget. If you've liked the stories so far, I'd love for you to check out the new channel. The link's in the description. Just one tap and you're there. Let's build this one together. First goal, 1,000 subscribers. And hey, if a story hits you hard, share it. You never know who needs it. Thanks for always being here. Let's get back to the story. It was always the small lies that showed first. Emily's smile didn't quite reach her eyes as she hugged Jack goodbye. Her arms were stiff, her kiss quick. Jack felt it. But he told himself it was stress. Deployment wasn't easy on anyone. You'll come back safe, right? She asked. He nodded. Always. She squeezed his hand one last time, then let go. At the gate, Jack looked back. She was already on her phone. 2 weeks into deployment, the first call came late. I'm just tired, Emily said. Work's been insane. Okay, Jack said. I just miss you. She didn't say it back. Jack sent flowers on their anniversary. No photo. No thank you. When he asked, she said, Oh, I thought I texted. They were beautiful. He smiled through it. But his stomach stayed tight all night. 3 months in, a soldier in his unit passed around a clip from a small-town Instagram story. Check this out. This dude's engaged to some chick back home. Look at this ring. Like she's the only one who matters. Jack's blood ran cold. The woman in the photo? Emily. Her hand, her ring, her laugh. But the man next to her, arms wrapped around her waist, wasn't Jack. It was Brandon Hayes, Jack's high school rival. The same guy who once said Jack would never be more than some low-rank grunt. The photo was dated last weekend. Jack stared, said nothing. But in his mind, a switch flipped. No yelling, no panic, just silence. And then the beginning of a plan. Brandon Hayes was exactly the kind of guy the town worshipped. He ran a local gym, had 1 million followers, and once made it onto a fitness reality show. Always shirtless, always smirking. The kind of guy who made people believe arrogance was confidence. Jack knew better. Back in high school, Brandon tripped him in the hallway, called him Discount G.I. Joe, said he'd never be anything. Now he was wrapping his arms around Jack's wife, wearing Jack's life like a new jacket. Jack had been gone for 6 months. A soldier overseas. And this guy? He'd moved into his home, his town, his world. Emily hadn't even mentioned Brandon's name once during their calls. But suddenly, Jack saw photos tagged at familiar restaurants. Her favorite coffee shop. Their old hiking trail. She wasn't hiding it. She didn't have to. Everyone in town thought Jack was just another ghost. Someone who went to war and never came back, emotionally, if not physically. But Jack was watching. And then came the twist of fate. Jack got reassigned. Stateside. Promotion pending. Same state. Same base. And Brandon had just enlisted. Maybe it was for clout. Maybe it was for real. But Brandon Hayes was now military property. And Jack Malone had just ranked higher. Jack stepped onto the new base. Put on his uniform. Read the list of incoming names. There it was. Private Brandon Hayes. A slow smile crept across Jack's face. Not yet. Not here. But soon. Brandon would remember exactly who he stepped over to get to the top. And this time, Jack wasn't coming back as some low-rank soldier. He was coming back to command. The first thing Jack noticed was the scent. Vanilla candles. Emily never lit those unless company was coming. The room was spotless, too spotless, like a staged memory. Their wedding photo was missing from the mantel. A new vase stood in its place, filled with blue orchids. She hated orchids. Jack dropped his duffel by the door. No sound. No footsteps. Emily, he called. No answer. He walked to the kitchen. 2 coffee mugs sat in the sink. One had lipstick. One didn't. The fridge had brand new groceries. Fresh produce. Expensive meat. A bottle of wine missing half. She told him money was tight. Said she was cutting back. He moved to the bedroom. The bed was made, but only the right side looked used. His side still had the blanket tucked tight beneath the pillow. She hadn't slept there since he left. Then he saw it. A button-down shirt on the closet floor. Not his size. Too slim. Too new. His hand hovered above it. He didn't touch it. Instead, he walked to the bathroom. Toothbrushes, too. Cologne, not his. Condoms, hidden behind the mouthwash. Jack stood still. His chest wasn't burning. His hands weren't shaking. There was no yelling. No shattering glass. Just silence. And then footsteps. The front door clicked. Emily entered, humming. She stopped cold when she saw him. Jack. He looked at her like she was a stranger. You weren't supposed to be back. He nodded slowly. I figured. She tried to smile. I was just surprised. Jack didn't ask. Didn't accuse. He picked up his bag and walked out. Quiet. Calm. She didn't follow him. And that was all he needed to know. Jack didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, he checked into a motel on the edge of town. Used cash. Fake name. Took a long shower. No emotion. No noise. Just planning. He knew Emily was lying. The only question now was how deep the lie went. He needed answers. Evidence. Control. The next day, Jack stopped by the house again while Emily was at work. He still had his keys. Everything looked the same, until it didn't. In her purse, buried under makeup bags and receipts, was a second phone. Smaller, sleek. Locked with a passcode he didn't know. He placed it down on the counter and stared. Then he remembered something. Her birthday. Month and day. Worth a shot. He entered 0716. The screen unlocked. His stomach turned. Messages popped up instantly. Brandon H. Can't wait for Sunday. We're the black one, Emily. Jack would never do this for me. Brandon. Jack doesn't matter. I'm the man now. Jack scrolled in silence. There were hundreds. Photos. Videos. Voice memos. One caught his attention. Brandon's voice. You ever think what'll happen if your husband finds out? Emily's laugh. He's not smart enough. Jack exhaled through his nose. He transferred the entire phone's contents to a burner drive. Then reset the device. Placed it back exactly where he found it. Zipped her purse shut. He stood in the kitchen and looked around again. The fake flowers. The wine. The mirror that used to hang above the sink. Gone. She was scrubbing his life out of their home, piece by piece. But she forgot one thing. He wasn't gone yet. Brandon Hayes swaggered across the base like he owned it. He laughed too loud. Worked out shirtless. Flexed in mirrors. Yo, you're the new guy in Echo? Someone asked. Brandon grinned. That's me. They needed real muscle. No one liked him, but he didn't notice. Or didn't care. What he really didn't know. The new ranking officer watching from the top floor window already knew everything. Jack had been officially reassigned. Captain Jack Malone, Special Operations Command. 1 rank below Major. 2 above Private. When he saw Brandon's name on the entry list, he smiled. It was too perfect. But he didn't rush it. This wasn't a punch-in-the-mouth kind of revenge. This was going to be a lesson. One Brandon would never forget. The first day of field training, Jack showed up in full uniform. Brandon nearly dropped his gear when he saw him. Wait, Jack? Captain Malone, Jack said flatly. You will address me as such. Brandon blinked. You're my CO? Jack didn't smile. Problem, Private? No, sir. Over the next week, Jack watched Brandon fall apart. Push-ups weren't funny anymore. Orders got louder. Discipline hit harder. Brandon couldn't quit, not without shame. And he wasn't smart enough to hide. Jack didn't expose him. Yet. Instead, he waited, watched, and recorded. Brandon bragged to others about his fiancée, told locker room stories that lined up with what Jack had already read. He even showed off the ring he was giving her, same one Jack had bought Emily 2 years ago, now refitted and cleaned. Jack went back to the motel that night, plugged in the drive, reviewed footage. Each piece was fuel, and when the match dropped, it would be the kind of explosion no one forgot. Jack sat at the corner of a greasy spoon diner just off base, nursing black coffee. His uniform collar itched, the starch still stiff from the last promotion. The waitress smiled politely, but he barely noticed her. Across the room, Brandon walked in laughing, flanked by 2 younger recruits. 2 eggs, extra bacon, and don't cheap out on the hash browns this time, Brandon called out, tossing a wink at the waitress. Jack didn't look up, but he listened. Brandon dropped into a booth and started bragging. I'm telling you, man, she's hot. Older, but like, real woman hot, not Instagram filter hot. Yeah, one of the recruits said. She's marrying me next month. Real ceremony. Real ring. My girl's top shelf. Jack sipped his coffee slowly. He glanced at his watch, pretending to be preoccupied. Brandon hadn't spotted him yet. You tell your CO about her yet? The other recruit asked. Brandon laughed. Nah, you don't need to know. And if he does? Screw it. It's not like he's going to show up at my wedding. Jack stood, walked past the table without saying a word. Brandon looked up mid-sentence. His mouth stayed open, but no words came out. Jack paused only long enough to meet his eyes. A short nod. Cold. Deadpan. Then he walked out the door. No threat. No smile. But Brandon's laughter was gone. That night, Emily called. Jack let it ring 5 times before answering. Jack? I heard you're back. Why didn't you tell me? I figured I'd surprise you. You should have come home. I did, he said. You weren't there. She hesitated. Jack, there's things I want to explain. Then do it at your wedding. I'll be there. Click. He tossed the phone on the bed and stared at the ceiling, letting the silence crawl over him. Mornings started the same. Drills, inspections, reports. But Jack had a second job now, studying his enemy. He observed Brandon like a soldier scopes terrain. Movement patterns, routines, weak spots. Brandon was sloppy, cocky, loud. The kind of man who thought charisma could cover incompetence. He showed up late to PT, bragged about fake injuries, hid behind charm when questioned. But Jack wasn't just watching for show. He was building a case, slow, airtight, undeniable. In private sessions, Jack ran field tests with Brandon's unit. Private Hayes, he barked one morning. Explain the comms protocol under stress fire. Brandon froze. Sir, I think it's Jack leaned in. Think? Or no? Brandon stammered. The others shifted awkwardly. Jack let the silence stretch until it stung. Then he turned to the others. Anyone want to help our rising star before he crashes the whole op? No one moved. Brandon flushed red. I'll review it tonight, sir. You do that. That evening, Jack pulled up surveillance footage from base cameras. Brandon had skipped out. Again. This time, he'd taken a tower detour off base to meet Emily at a hotel. Jack watched them laugh on the security cam at the parking lot entrance. Brandon lifted her up by the waist like some rom-com scene. Jack didn't flinch. Instead, he noted the timestamp, pulled GPS data, and filed it all. Emily thought he was still overseas. Brandon thought Jack was just a CO with no clue. They were both wrong. Jack wasn't watching them to punish. He was watching them to prepare. For exposure. For impact. For total collapse. And when it hit, it wouldn't just end the affair. It would stain reputations, crush illusions, and bury the fantasy they thought they were living in. It arrived in a white envelope, hand-addressed. Jack stared at it like it was a joke. His name wasn't on the outside. Just a return label from Emily and Brandon. He opened it slowly, carefully. The card was thick, elegant, cream-colored with gold trim. The kind of thing people paid too much for to show they had money. A smiling photo of them on the beach was tucked inside. Brandon shirtless, Emily in a white dress, mid-laugh, hair blowing in the wind. They looked happy, like something out of a catalog. But Jack saw it differently. He saw the lie in Emily's eyes. The way her hand gripped Brandon's arm just a little too tight. Like she was holding on to a future she wasn't sure of. Then he saw the date. 3 weeks from now. He flipped the card over. At the bottom, in italic script, "You are warmly invited to celebrate the beginning of forever." Jack set the card down. He didn't laugh. Didn't speak. Instead, he stood, walked to his duffel, and pulled out a box. Inside, his dress uniform, neatly pressed. Medals. Service pins. Rank bars. At the bottom, a sealed folder. He opened it. Promotion order, Captain Jack Malone. Clearance level 5. He packed everything again, slower this time. Picked up the invitation one more time. Then took out a blank RSVP card. He wrote, "Confirmed. Guest, 1 name. Classified rank. Major." He sealed it, stamped it, and dropped it into the mailbox across the street. He could already hear the music, see the look on Brandon's face. But he wasn't going for her. And he sure as hell wasn't going to stop it. He was going to finish it in front of everyone. The RSVP card sat among the others in a tidy box Emily kept near her vanity, sorted, color-coded, obsessively neat. She read through the stack on a quiet Sunday afternoon, sipping rose. Brandon was out training, or so he said. She didn't care much anymore. This wedding was about appearance. The fantasy. She flipped open another envelope and paused. No name. Just a small card filled in with sharp block letters, confirmed. Guest, 1 name, classified rank. Major. Her brow furrowed. Major? She whispered. She laughed softly, brushing it off. Probably a prank from one of Brandon's base buddies. He always joked about inviting officers to class up the crowd. Still, something about the tone unsettled her. Across town, Jack sat in a dark motel room lit only by his laptop. On screen, a photo of Brandon with 2 lieutenants, arm around one, drunk. The caption, "Don't worry, she won't find out." Another file popped open. Phone screenshots. A folder labeled insurance. Jack checked the time. 3 weeks to go. He opened a private browser tab. Searched for the venue. It was the same chapel where he and Emily had taken engagement photos 4 years ago. She had said it felt sacred. Now she was walking down that aisle for someone else. Jack pulled out a black flash drive, slotted it into the laptop, and began organizing folders by date. Each one was a weapon, a story, a strike. When he was done, he labeled the main file, wedding__final, then backed it up 3 times. This wasn't just revenge. It was precision. And everything, from the RSVP to the ceremony, was falling exactly into place. Jack hadn't planned on seeing her mother again. But the florist shop was right next to her office, and curiosity got the better of him. He stepped inside. Crisp uniform, clean shave. He looked like everything Emily had thrown away. Carol, Emily's mother, gasped softly when she saw him. "Jack, I thought you were dead? Deployed?" She shook her head quickly. No, just gone." He smiled, tight-lipped. "Not quite." She offered coffee. He accepted. 5 minutes became 20. Then she pulled out a photo album from her desk drawer. "We've been planning everything." Emily insisted on doing it old school. Said she wanted a wedding with memories. Carol smiled, flipping pages. She even printed their engagement photos. She handed Jack a picture. His hand froze. The background, the chapel steps. The exact spot he once knelt with a velvet box. Only now it was Brandon kneeling, Emily laughing, wearing the same earrings Jack gave her 3 anniversaries ago. She never told me she moved on, Carol said gently. Not until last month. Jack nodded. She's quick. Carol frowned. She didn't even mention the divorce was final. I had to find out from Facebook. Jack placed the photo back in the book. Some things don't deserve closure. Carol looked at him for a long moment. You deserved better. He stood. She'll get what she deserves. Carol didn't ask what he meant. But when he left, he caught her watching him through the window, a worried hand at her mouth. She had no idea what was coming. No one did. The chapel stood still under late afternoon light, white paint glowing like it had been scrubbed by heaven itself. Inside, Pastor Everett rehearsed his sermon in the empty room, mouthing vows to the silence. Then the door opened. Jack stepped in, his uniform catching the sunlight like armor. Everett froze. Captain Malone, it's still Jack. I'm not here for prayers. Everett nodded slowly, closing his book. You're not here to stop it, are you? Jack approached the altar, looking around. You remember when Emily and I came here? She cried during the tour. Said it felt like a fairy tale. I remember, Everett said quietly. Now she's marrying a fraud in the same damn place. Everett studied him. So why are you here? Jack pulled a small flash drive from his pocket. I want this played during the reception. After the vows. Everett hesitated. Jack, it's not revenge. It's the truth. Every second of it. What's on it? Jack's voice stayed level. Everything. The lies. The affair. The timestamps. The proof. Her words. His. Everett looked at the drive. Then at Jack. And what happens after? Jack stepped forward, eyes locked in. That's not my concern. Everett took the drive. Didn't ask questions. Jack walked out without looking back. The chapel was quiet again, but the air felt charged like a storm had been sealed inside, waiting for one crack to open and shatter the silence. Jack didn't plan to visit the boutique, but when he spotted Emily through the shop window, surrounded by lace, silk, and fake laughter, he stopped. She was radiant in the way only lies could make someone glow. Holding up a white gown, beaming at her friends like the last 6 years hadn't existed. Jack stepped inside. The bell above the door rang. Emily didn't notice him at first. The saleswoman turned, offering a smile, then paused when she saw Jack's uniform. Can I help? Emily looked up. Froze. The moment stretched. Then she smiled tightly. Jack, didn't mean to interrupt, he said. Was just passing through. She set the dress down like it had burned her hands. You're back. I heard. From Brandon. Jack nodded. That's so? He said you got promoted. Yeah. He looked around. Nice place. Pricey. It's worth it. Still using the card I paid off? The silence sliced deeper than any insult. Emily's friends looked at each other, uneasy. I'll pay you back, she said, almost a whisper. You already did, Jack said. With interest. He turned to leave, but paused at the door. Why, it's a bold choice, he said. But I guess lies look good in any color. He walked out, the bell jingling like laughter behind him. Emily stood still, eyes locked on the door. She didn't move for a long time. That night, Jack sat alone at a VFW bar, lit by neon signs and old jukebox glow. The place was quiet, old veterans talking in murmurs, worn boots tapping to Johnny Cash. He pulled out his phone, opened the voice recorder, and hit record. His voice was calm. Steady. Emily, if you're hearing this, it means the video played. Not to shame you. Not to ruin you. Just to remind you who I really was before you threw me away. He paused. Took a drink. I loved you. Every letter I wrote from overseas, every minute I stayed loyal, it was real. But you? You were building another life while I was dodging bullets. The jukebox clicked. A slow country ballad hummed under his words. You thought I wouldn't know. You thought I couldn't matter. You thought I was just some low-rank soldier you could forget. You were wrong. He ended the recording. Saved the file, finalwords_e.m. Then he emailed it to the same inbox as the video files, set to auto-send after the wedding ceremony started. Jack finished his drink, nodded at the bartender, and left without another word. Outside, the sky was black. Quiet. But in Jack's world, the countdown had begun. Brandon's bachelor party was exactly what Jack expected, loud, arrogant, and dripping in bad taste. He showed up late, wearing full dress blues. Not invited, but no one dared question a captain when he walked through the door. Brandon's jaw dropped when he saw him. Captain? Jack? What are you doing here? Just checking on my unit, Jack said, voice even. Brandon tried to laugh. Well, you picked a hell of a night. Did I? The room quieted slightly. The younger guy shifted awkwardly. Jack looked around. Lots of noise. Little discipline. Brandon scoffed. It's a party, man. Jack stepped closer. Private Hayes, this isn't a party. This is your record. And it's already stained. Brandon's smile faded. Jack looked at the drinks. The pills in a passed-out recruit's hand. The girl sitting way too close to another married soldier. He pulled out his phone. Snapped a photo. You're off duty, Brandon muttered. I'm always on duty, Jack said. And he left. Outside, Jack exhaled sharply. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about accountability. Every lie, every cheat, every unearned second of joy these people built on someone else's back, it was going to crack wide open. Jack wasn't just burning them down. He was cleaning house. And the fire hadn't even started yet. Jack sat cross-legged on the motel bed, the room dim except for the cold blue light of his laptop. On the screen, folder after folder was open. Texts, videos, voicemails, GPS logs, photos. He labeled each with precision. Dated, time-stamped. No guesswork. No holes. He plugged in the black flash drive, military grade, encrypted, untraceable. The kind they used in covert ops. Each file copied over, one by one. A thumbnail caught his eye. A voicemail labeled Emily_July 10. He hesitated, then played it. Jack, I know you're probably asleep. I just wanted to say I miss you tonight. I really do. Her voice cracked with fake tenderness. He knew now. Brandon was in the bed with her that night. Her, I miss you, came with someone else's arms around her. He didn't flinch. Not anymore. He selected the voicemail and moved it into the main folder, wedding__truth. There was more. Surveillance footage from the base gate showing Brandon sneaking out at night. Video from a traffic cam. Brandon's truck pulling into a cheap motel. Emily following 10 minutes later. And voice memos. One from Brandon. If anyone finds out about this, I'll lose everything. She better keep her mouth shut. Jack hit stop. Everything was organized. One folder. One truth. He copied it to a second drive, labeled it as backup. Then he placed the main flash drive in a small black box. The note taped to it was handwritten, all caps. Play this at reception, and no matter what. He dropped the box off that night at the chapel's back door. Tucked it behind the AV table. No cameras. No attention. Just quiet infiltration. A soldier's job is to get in and get out unseen. And Jack was damn good at his job. The chapel echoed with soft laughter as Brandon strutted down the aisle in dress shoes he'd never broken in. He winked at the bridesmaids. Called it showtime practice. Emily adjusted her veil and whispered with her maid of honor. Her nerves weren't about marriage. They were about the guest list. She still hadn't figured out who sent that RSVP. Major? No name. Brandon assured her it was one of his old COs, someone important. But chill, he said. Still, it lingered. The pastor called for a run-through. Brandon extended his arm. Emily slid her hand through it. From the back pews, Jack watched. He wore plain clothes. Baseball cap low. Unnoticed in the shadows. He timed their movements. He watched Brandon's arrogance, the way he adjusted his collar, patted his hair, acted like a king awaiting his crown. Emily rehearsed her vows with too much smile. She was performing. Jack scanned the room. He noted every speaker, every screen. He walked past the reception hall, confirmed the video system setup, and marked the power source behind the curtains. The AV guy was on a smoke break. Jack nodded at him in passing. Later, in the hallway, Jack crossed paths with Brandon. The idiot didn't recognize him out of uniform. Hey, man, you at the venue? Brandon asked. Jack tilted his head. You could say that. Brandon didn't wait for a response. Just kept walking, talking to himself. Jack stood there a moment, watching him disappear into a future he didn't deserve. Then he pulled out his phone. One more confirmation. Delivery. One flash drive, secured behind AV console. Timer email. 10:42 a.m. Ceremony plus 20 minutes. It was all in place. He walked out without anyone noticing. Just like always. Jack didn't plan on staying for the wreckage. He just wanted to light the match and walk away. But this wasn't just about them anymore. It was about the system, the trust people put into uniforms, vows, and promises. He wasn't just betrayed as a husband. He was undermined as a soldier, a man, and a human being. This betrayal had layers, and it demanded closure. He booked a one-way ticket to Colorado, left the return date blank. It wasn't a retreat, it was an extraction, quiet and clean. He packed everything he owned into one duffel, dog tags, discharge letters, one framed photo of his late father, and a thumb drive labeled legal backup. The motel room was stripped clean. No trace. He left a tip on the nightstand and folded the bedspread military style. Before locking the door, he looked around one last time. This room had witnessed the collapse of everything and the rebuilding of something stronger. His last stop was the storage unit near the base. Inside, a small black trunk. He opened it, pulled out a single envelope, divorce papers, signed, unmailed. He dropped them into a pre-addressed envelope, marked it final. He drove to the chapel one last time, parked half a block away, just out of view. He watched the lights flicker inside. Staff prepping chairs, strings of flowers wrapped around pews. He sat in silence, engine off, no music. He imagined the scene. Guests dressed up, champagne chilling, the perfect playlist. Then, at minute 20, the screen flickers. The video plays, and the fairy tale tears at the seams. Not with fire, not with shouting, with truth. He drove away without looking back. The damage was already set. And tomorrow, the collapse would begin. The rehearsal dinner was held in the banquet hall next to the chapel, all polished with floors, overpriced lighting, and tables with name cards no one would remember by Monday. Jack wasn't invited, but he didn't need to be. He sat at the corner of the bar 2 floors down, black cap low, sipping water, watching everything unfold through the mirrored wall behind him. Brandon's best man was Thomas Rigg, another cocky ex-fret guy turned base recruit, who'd coasted through life on charm and loopholes. He strutted around the reception hall like he'd won something, until he saw Jack. Jack clocked it instantly, recognition flickered, then hesitation. Thomas walked over, cautiously. Malone, right? Captain Jack Malone? Jack didn't flinch. That's me. Thomas leaned in. Listen, I don't know what this is about, but if this is some kind of stunt, Jack cut him off. It's not a stunt. It's justice. And you do well to stay out of it. Thomas glanced around. You're coming to the wedding? I'll be there. Thomas shifted on his feet, suddenly less confident. You planning to ruin it? Jack stared straight ahead at the mirrored wall. I don't have to ruin anything. They did that themselves. He stood up. Tall. Calm. Certain. You want to be loyal to Brandon? Fine. But don't say I didn't give you a warning shot. He left Thomas standing there, confused, uneasy, and sweating under a suit jacket that suddenly felt too tight. In war, you don't always shoot the loudest one. Sometimes you just let them hear the gun cock. The morning of the wedding, the sun rose into a clean, cloudless sky. Birds chirped like it was a perfect day. Jack was already awake. He ironed his uniform, double-checked his medals, his insignia, his collar bars. Every detail in place. He wasn't just dressing for revenge. He was dressing for clarity. Before leaving the motel for the final time, he opened a small box, velvet-lined, black. Inside, Emily's original engagement ring, the one she claimed she lost a year ago. He had found it pawned in a small-town shop 6 months after deployment. Bought it back. No words. No drama. Just kept it. Now, he slid it into a small envelope, folded it with the RSVP list, and tucked it under his jacket. At the chapel, guests poured in. Laughter. Expensive perfume. Everyone in full Instagram mode. Jack arrived without warning, stepping out of a sleek black SUV driven by a local vet friend. No one recognized him at first, until he walked through the front doors, full uniform, chest full of medals, calm like a ticking bomb. Heads turned. People whispered. A bridesmaid froze mid-sip. Is that? But he kept walking. Straight down the aisle. Brandon's face drained color. Emily turned and nearly dropped her bouquet. Jack walked past the pews and handed a sealed envelope to the AV team. Reception video. Bride and groom requested it played right after the toasts. The tech nodded, confused but compliant. Jack said nothing more. He stepped outside, waited under the tree where he and Emily once carved their initials, pulled out a pocket knife, and scratched a new one below it. Wounds heal. Memory doesn't. The music started. Strings and soft piano echoed across the chapel as Emily walked down the aisle, veil floating like a lie wrapped in silk. Jack stood at the edge of the tree lean, watching through the side window. The guests rose. Phones out. Smiles wide. A picture-perfect moment. She reached Brandon. He took her hand. The pastor smiled. Dearly beloved. Jack didn't hear the rest. He didn't need to. The vows were written. The lie was rehearsed. The betrayal was now public tradition. Inside his jacket, he felt the edge of the envelope with the pawned ring pressing against his chest. At exactly 20 minutes past the ceremony start, the doors to the reception hall opened. People flooded in. Laughter. Glasses clinking. Jack waited near the back in trance, calm. The AV screen flickered to life. Brandon's voice boomed. She better keep her mouth shut. Then Emily's text appeared on screen. Jack would never be man enough to come back. Gasps. A full sequence of texts scrolled by. Then pictures. Dates. Locations. The video ended on a final shot. Brandon and Emily, half naked, time-stamped. The day after Jack returned home. Silence swallowed the room. Someone dropped a glass. Brandon stood frozen. Emily backed away from the screen like it might explode. Then Jack stepped in through the side door. Not to gloat. Not to scream. Just to deliver one thing. He walked up to the main table, placed the original engagement ring in front of Emily. I believe this belongs to you. She stared, speechless. He turned to Brandon. Saluted. Dismissed. Then Jack walked out. Straight-backed. Unbothered. Behind him, only chaos. The silence was louder than any explosion. Guests froze in mid-chew, champagne flutes halfway to their lips. The AV screen still hung in the air like a dead body no one wanted to acknowledge. Brandon stood at the center of it all, jaw slack, breathing hard, the perfect golden boy now caught in the filth of his own making. Emily was trembling, lipstick smudged, hands shaking. She looked around the room for someone, anyone, who might save her. No one moved. No one said a word. At the back of the hall, a woman stood up. Brandon's aunt. Is this a joke? Jack, standing quietly near the doors, responded without raising his voice. Not even close. He stepped forward again, calm, but with full control of the room. Every word you saw, every photo, every message, it's real. Pulled directly from their phones. Time-stamped. Verified. Brandon opened his mouth. This isn't legal. You can't just... I can. Jack cut in, and I did. He nodded to the AV technician. It's also been sent to every guest who RSVP'd. Enjoy your souvenir. A ripple of gasps. Emily looked like she might vomit. Jack turned to the pastor, who stood pale, gripping the edge of the table. Sorry to crash the ceremony, but I believe in honest vows. Then he faced the crowd. I was the man Emily promised forever to. While I served this country, she served someone else in my bed. He turned to leave, but before stepping out, he paused by Brandon. Being dismissed is the nicest thing that's going to happen to you. He walked out into sunlight. Inside, voices rose, angry, stunned, gossipy. And the wedding? Over. Brandon didn't show up for base duty the next morning, but it didn't matter. By the time he would have reported in, the formal complaint had already been filed, backed by evidence Jack had documented for months. Violations of military conduct, misuse of classified training time, off-base misconduct. Jack wasn't just out for revenge. He was out for justice. The following week, Brandon received an official notification. Preliminary discharge under investigation. Status, dishonorable. He tried to appeal, but the video file had gone viral. Not just in personal circles, it hit military forums, Reddit, private discords. Somebody leaked it. By the time command reviewed the file, it was already public knowledge. Brandon's influencer deals dropped him. His gym sponsors cut ties. He tried to go live and explain. Nobody cared. his comments filled with clown emojis and Captain Karma strikes again. Emily, meanwhile, had disappeared from socials, deleted every post, went dark. A month later, a shaky iPhone video surfaced online. Brandon at a dive bar, drunk, yelling at a group of guys who called him a disgrace. He swung, missed, got laid out on the floor while someone yelled, "Say hi to Jack Malone for us." Jack watched the clip once, didn't smile, didn't share it, just closed his phone and returned to his paperwork. He wasn't done yet. He had one more move to make. Not against Brandon, not even against Emily, but against everything that let them get away with it for so long. Emily hadn't been seen in public since the wedding. Rumor had it she'd gone to stay with a distant cousin in another state. Her parents were humiliated. Her mother stopped answering calls. Her father canceled all memberships at the local country club. But that wasn't the worst of it. The worst part? No one wanted her version of the story. Friends unfollowed. Texts went unanswered. She became a pariah in a town that once called her the sweetheart of Main Street. She tried emailing Jack once. The subject line, "I didn't mean for this to happen." Jack didn't open it. He archived it without reading. What more was there to say? On the fourth Sunday after the wedding, Jack visited the chapel one last time. It was empty. Sunlight filtered in through stained glass windows. The aisle still carried faint petals, a few forgotten decorations never fully cleaned. He walked up to the altar, stood where Brandon once did, then turned and faced the empty pews. He imagined Emily in her dress, the crowd smiling, and then he imagined the silence. The moment it all burned down, he didn't smile. He didn't regret it. He just stood there, then turned around, walked back down the aisle, step by step, the way the groom never did, and exited the place for good. 3 weeks after the wedding, that wasn't. Life around town slowly returned to its regular rhythm. But not for everyone. For Emily, things never restarted. Her job didn't fire her. They just quietly stopped giving her important clients. The whispers started. The tension in break rooms. The sudden silence when she walked past. People stared like she was infected. It wasn't just about cheating. It was how she was exposed. Publicly. Brutally. Visibly. She became a story. A lesson. A name people dropped in cautionary conversations. Don't go full Emily. She tried contacting Brandon. No answer. He was spiraling, drinking, fighting, burning every bridge left. She was alone. And Jack? He didn't reach out. Didn't show up. Didn't even exist in her world anymore. But his silence was louder than screaming. Meanwhile, Jack sat in the quiet of a veteran support office. Not as a client, but as a guest speaker. A small group of men and women in folding chairs looked up at him as he finished a story not about Emily or Brandon, but about rebuilding trust after betrayal. About losing everything and choosing not to stay broken. The applause was quiet. Respectful. A man approached him after. "You saved yourself, man. That's the hardest part." Jack nodded. "Yeah, but I didn't do it alone." Later that night, Jack sat in his truck. One hand on the steering wheel, one holding a small letter. The return address wasn't Emily. It was someone else. Someone unexpected. And when he read the first line, his jaw tightened, his eyes narrowed, and everything changed. The letter was from Melissa, Brandon's ex-fiancée, the one he dumped 2 months before dating Emily. Jack remembered her. They crossed paths once at a military base event years ago. She was quiet, observant, polite, but sharp. The letter was short, handwritten, and clean. "Jack, I watched your video. Not the viral version. The full one. I got it from someone who thought I deserved the truth. I've been building a case on Brandon for almost a year. You just lit the fuse. Let's finish what we started." Alyssa Jack read it 3 times, then pulled out his laptop and opened a folder labeled Archive, Pre-Wedding. Inside were files he hadn't touched since before the revenge plan started. Old bank transfers, loan applications, a flagged security clearance review for Brandon, one that had suddenly gone missing. Brandon hadn't just been a cheater. He was stealing, covering debts, faking documents, using Emily as a clean name to cover business loans. It was deeper than personal betrayal. This was federal-level fraud. Jack picked up the phone, called a number only a few people had. "Yeah," he said, when they answered. I need access to my level 5 clearance again. I'm reopening something. Pause. No, it's not personal this time. It's bigger. He hung up, stared out the window into the dark. The revenge was done. Now it was justice time. They met at a quiet diner on the edge of a dead highway, one of those places where the jukebox plays the same 3 songs and the waitress calls you Han. Alyssa wore jeans, a black leather jacket, and a face that had seen disappointment, but not defeat. Jack slid into the booth across from her. You look like hell, she said. Thanks. Been a busy month. She smirked. You did good. That wedding bomb? Legendary. Jack didn't smile. Wasn't enough. She slid a folder across the table. Brandon's been moving money through ghost LLCs, fake charity fronts. Emily helped, she just didn't know it. Jack opened the folder. Inside, screenshots, notarized statements, forged signatures. His digital trail is sloppy, Alyssa continued. But it's there. Jack flipped through each page. You were tracking him before? I was gonna marry the guy. Thought I'd do my homework. Jack closed the folder. This isn't just revenge anymore. No, she said. Now it's a takedown. They both looked at each other for a beat. 2 people broken by the same man, now weaponizing the fallout. What do you want from me? Jack asked. I need someone who can get inside, and someone who doesn't hesitate to pull the trigger when the truth hits. Jack leaned back. You just found him. The coffee shop Alyssa chose was small and tucked into a corner street near base housing, quiet enough to talk, but public enough to stay smart. Jack sat across from her, watching the front door as she scrolled through her phone. She's nervous, Alyssa said, but she agreed. Sure she's telling the truth? Jack asked. She didn't know she was the side piece until your video went viral. Now she wants to burn it all down. Jack nodded, calm but alert. 10 minutes later, a young woman in her early 20s walked in, pale, dark circles under her eyes, and clearly terrified. Alyssa waved her over. This is Rachel, she said. Brandon's secret number 3. Jack raised an eyebrow. 3. Rachel sat down slowly, hands shaking as she held her cup. He said I was the only one. He said he was stuck in a toxic engagement. I didn't even know he was married or almost married until TikTok started tagging me. She pulled out a flash drive from her purse. He left his laptop open one night. I copied everything. Jack took it. What's on here? Emails. PDFs. I don't understand it all, but there are contracts with fake signatures. A bank account opened in Emily's name. He used her identity. Jack and Alyssa exchanged a look. This was it. The final nail. Rachel blinked back tears. Am I in trouble? Jack shook his head. No. You just helped take down a criminal. She nodded, stood, and left without another word. Jack slid the flash drive into his coat pocket. Let's end him, Alyssa said. Jack didn't respond, but the fire in his eyes said it all. 2 weeks later, Brandon was called into a military tribunal under emergency review. He walked in like it was a joke, still clinging to the last shreds of his swagger, like the uniform would somehow save him from himself. But when he entered the hearing room and saw Jack seated at the table across from command, he paused. No smile this time. The officer at the bench looked up. Private Brandon Hayes, you are being reviewed for potential violations of Article 92, 107, and 121. Unauthorized conduct, false official statements, and fraud against the U.S. government. Brandon opened his mouth to speak, but his attorney leaned in and whispered. Jack watched silently, files stacked neatly in front of him. Alyssa sat just behind him, composed and unreadable. The flash drive was in evidence. So were the video files. So were the financials, the fake charities, the stolen identities, and the ghost businesses traced back to Brandon's personal IP. It was ironclad. When Jack was asked to speak, he stood without notes. I don't care about the cheating. That's not why I'm here, he said. But when you steal from your own, when you lie to the people who trusted you, and when you turn a uniform into a shield for corruption, that's not personal. That's a threat to everyone who serves. He sat down without waiting for a response. Brandon looked down at the table, fist clenched. But it was already over. He wasn't facing dishonor anymore. He was staring down a prison sentence. Emily hadn't seen it coming. Not the court case. Not the headlines. Not the subpoena. She thought after the wedding crash, the worst was over. She'd disappear for a while, lay low, reemerge quietly. But the government had other plans. When she got the letter, officially labeled as a federal witness notification, she dropped her coffee on the floor. You may have been unknowingly involved in a multi-layer financial fraud scheme. 2 hours later, she sat across from a quiet woman in a gray pantsuit at a federal building in Austin. Miss Taylor, the woman said, we're not accusing you of anything yet. But we need to understand what you knew and when you knew it. Emily swallowed hard. I didn't know he was using my name. You signed a loan application, the agent said, sliding over a copy. That's your handwriting. He told me it was for a fitness grant. I trusted him. Did you know the charity was fake? Emily went pale. No, the agent closed her file. We may need a deposition. Cooperating could protect you. Emily nodded, numb. When she left the building, the sky felt too bright. Cars honked like gunshots. The world moved fast, and she moved slow. At home, she poured a drink and stared at her phone. She didn't dare call Jack. Not anymore. She thought she'd outgrown him. She thought she traded up. But now, she was standing in the wreckage of a life she helped build and destroy. And the man she once called not man enough was the one who took it all down without ever raising his voice. Jack didn't post the video. He never needed to. Someone at the wedding had recorded the entire crash, the helicopter, the salute, the moment the flash drive played, and uploaded it to Reddit. From there, it went viral in hours. The post title read, Bride's military ex shows up at her wedding in uniform. What happens next is savage. Millions of views. Dozens of reaction videos. TikTok edits with dramatic music. Someone dubbed him Captain Karma. But Jack didn't read the comments. He didn't answer messages. He kept his face low, stayed away from interviews, and let the internet make up its own mythology. Still, the story followed him everywhere. A waitress at a roadside diner stared at him too long. A mechanic saluted him without context. Even base security ran his ID twice, not for clearance, but to confirm they were really looking at that Jack Malone. Back at his place, Alyssa scrolled through the video's latest repost. Someone tagged me in a reaction clip, she said. They called me your revenge partner in crime. Jack raised an eyebrow. You okay with that? She smirked. Better than being someone's side chick in silence. She tossed him a manila envelope. What's this? He asked. A thank you. From a wife in Colorado. Her husband was almost scammed into Brandon's charity pitch. Your takedown scared the hell out of him. Jack opened the letter. Read it once. Folded it carefully and placed it in his desk drawer. He didn't smile. But for the first time in months, his chest didn't feel heavy. Maybe it wasn't about revenge anymore. Maybe this was something bigger. Jack was alone in his apartment when the phone rang. He didn't recognize the number, but he picked up anyway. Old habits. Jack. The voice cracked on the other end. Emily. He didn't speak. Please don't hang up, she said quickly. I'm not calling to fight. Silence. I got subpoenaed, she continued. They said I could face charges if I don't testify. Jack leaned against the counter, eyes on the window. They said my name's on 3 different accounts, she said. On documents I never even saw. You signed them, he said flatly. I trusted him, she replied, voice soft. I didn't think he'd. You didn't think at all. A pause. Then, I never meant for any of this. I didn't mean to hurt you like that. Jack laughed once, dry, sharp. You meant to erase me. That's not true. You were going to marry him, Emily. In the same place we were supposed to. With the ring I bought you. She choked on her breath. I was lost. Jack didn't answer. I don't know what to do, she whispered. You tell the truth. You testify. And you carry your shame like the rest of us carried your lies. He hung up. And this time, it didn't hurt. Jack sat in a chair at a clean, dimly lit tattoo shop tucked behind a liquor store off base. The artist, ex-military, sleeves covered in eagle feathers and fallen soldier dates, didn't ask questions. Just nodded at Jack's request and got to work. On Jack's upper right shoulder, just under the collarbone, a hawk took shape. Wings spread. Eyes sharp. Below it, 2 words inked in black script, never grounded. Each needle burn felt like punctuation. Jack didn't flinch. Alyssa waited outside, arms crossed, sipping from a takeout cup. When he stepped out, she gave him a once-over. Let me see it. He lifted his shirt. She smiled. Fitzhugh. You ever regret it? He asked. Brandon. No. Burning it all down. Alyssa exhaled. Not for a second. They walked toward the truck. You know, she said, people think revenge is the end. Like it's the finish line. And it's not. It's the clean slate that comes after. Jack looked at the sky, the late sun slicing through gray clouds. I like that, he said. Clean slate. Jack stood in his apartment late that night, flipping through a small black journal. His burned book. Not the high school kind. This one held names, dates, facts, a soldier's log of betrayal and truth. A record of every lie he'd uncovered during the fallout. At the top of the newest page, Brandon Hayes, status, finished. Below it, Emily Taylor, subpoenaed. Status, unresolved. He paused, then wrote the last line. Karma doesn't need permission, just patience. He closed the book, slid it into the drawer next to his father's flag, then picked up a framed photo, him and his old unit. 3 of them gone now, one of them still deployed. They used to joke that karma didn't always show up in time, but now it flew in on a helicopter and delivered with a salute. Jack didn't plan to speak, but the press wouldn't stop. After Brandon's sentencing, 3 years in federal custody with dishonorable discharge, the media spun a dozen different versions of the story. Betrayed hero strikes back. Soldier outschemes cheaters. Uniformed revenge goes viral. But no one had his version. So when the military invited him to give a brief public statement, no press, just internal broadcast, he said yes. He stood in front of the camera in full uniform, ribbons aligned, collar crisp. A muted American flag hung behind him. He didn't read from a script. Service isn't just about combat. It's about character, discipline, honor, even when no one's watching. He paused. Let the silence breathe. Brandon Hayes violated that. Not just in his personal life, but in uniform, with our trust. He looked directly into the lens. We protect this country, but we also protect each other. When someone like him wears the same uniform and uses it to lie, steal, and manipulate, that's not just betrayal. It's rot. Another beat. I didn't do what I did for revenge. I did it so no one else would have to be the next target. He stepped back, saluted, and walked away. In the control room, one officer stood up and muttered under his breath, that man just taught a masterclass. The clip never aired on public channels. But inside military circles, it was shown in ethics training within the month. The letter came in a plain envelope, no return address, but Jack knew the kind. The handwriting was neat, practiced. Someone used to writing from overseas to someone who might not return home. He opened it slowly. Dear Jack, I don't know you, but my husband does. He was almost talked into Brandon's veteran investment group. He thought it was legit until he saw your video. He pulled out, and then he found out the charity wasn't real. That could have wrecked us. You didn't just protect your name. You protected people like us. So, thank you. A soldier's wife. Jack folded the letter, placed it next to the others, a small stack now. Quiet gratitude, sent from strangers. He sat back in his chair. For months, he felt like his name was reduced to a punchline in someone else's affair. But now his name meant something again. Not revenge. Respect. Jack didn't want a celebration. He didn't want drinks or toasts or someone clapping him on the back saying, hell yeah, you got her good. He just wanted quiet. So he drove 3 hours north to the small cemetery where his father was buried. A man who'd served before him. A man who always said, karma doesn't miss. It just takes the long way. He stood by the grave in full dress. Set down a folded flag, the same one he'd been awarded when promoted. Dad, he said, voice low. You'd have told me to walk away. I know that. He smiled slightly. But I also know you would have loaded the flash drive yourself. He stayed for a long time. No phone. No noise. Just wind, trees, and peace. And when he finally stood to leave, he felt like he'd left something behind. Not a burden. Not regret. Just the past. Jack didn't retire from service. But he changed how he served. 6 months later, he was running private seminars for active duty members. Digital defense for soldiers, focused on protecting personal data, reputations, and identity online. No slide decks. No boring stats. Just raw truth. He told his story once. No names, no gossip, and every room went silent. Don't give someone your blind trust, he said. And don't give them your passwords. People laughed. But they also listened. Because he wasn't a talking head. He was a walking example. At the end of each seminar, he handed out flash drives. Encrypted. Preloaded with digital safety tools. On the casing, a symbol of a hawk in flight. Underneath, never grounded. The legend of Captain Karma faded over time. But the message? That lived on. The letter arrived from Emily weeks after the dust had settled. No drama. No envelope perfume. Just plain paper, folded carefully, and left at Jack's office. He stared at it for a while. Didn't want to open it. But part of closure is facing what you walked away from. Jack, I know I don't deserve your time. I don't expect forgiveness. But I needed you to know. I'm sorry. Not just for the cheating. For erasing you. For rewriting our history like it didn't matter. I look back now, and I don't even recognize the person I became. And somehow, you still held the line. Quiet. Precise. Unshakable. You didn't just end a wedding. You ended a lie I had built my life on. I'll carry that shame with me. Every day. Not because you want me to, but because I finally understand what I destroyed. I hope you're okay. I hope you find peace. And I hope you know you mattered more than I ever told you. Emily. Jack folded the letter. He didn't cry. Didn't smile. Didn't even feel the rage anymore. Just a strange, deep stillness. The kind that comes when the final chapter closes without noise. He slid the letter into the back of the burned book, not to destroy it, but to seal it in memory. Then walked outside, hands in his pockets, the winter air sharp against his face. That was the last time he ever thought of her with pain, and the last time he said her name out loud. Jack stood in front of the mirror in his apartment, shirtless, morning light hitting his chest at an angle. The hawk tattoo looked different now. Not fresh, not raw, part of him. His face had changed too. More lines, more weight behind the eyes. Not age, clarity. He ran water in the sink, splashed it on his face, and stared. This was the man who'd once cried in a Jeep after reading a message meant for someone else. This was the man who'd spent nights watching videos of his wife in someone else's arms. This was the man who let his silence speak louder than any revenge speech could have. He reached for his uniform. Not because he needed it for work, but because he still respected it. Button by button, he suited up. Not for war, but for life. And as he adjusted the collar, he looked into the mirror again. And this time, he saw peace. In a quiet apartment in another city, Emily opened a dusty box she'd kept sealed for months. Inside, printed wedding photos from the engagement shoot. Laughter frozen in pixels. Brandon's arm around her waist. Her smile wide, fake, perfect. She sat on the floor for a long time, staring. Then one by one, she pulled the photos out. Ripped them straight down the middle. Dropped the halves into a black trash bag. Her hands trembled only once, when she reached the last photo. It was from years ago. Jack in uniform. Her kissing his cheek, both of them laughing under fireworks. She paused, then tore it in half. Not out of hate, but because she knew now she didn't deserve to keep it. She tied the bag shut, carried it to the dumpster, dropped it in. The echo of plastic hitting metal was louder than she expected. But when she walked away, she didn't look back. Brandon sat under studio lights, unshaven, his voice thin and uncertain. He'd begged for this podcast spot, a redemption talk, he'd called it. The host nodded politely, leaned in. So why now? Brandon cleared his throat. I messed up, he said. Bad. I lost my rank, my career, people I thought I loved. He paused. I didn't just cheat. I lied. I manipulated. I used my uniform to shield myself from accountability. The host raised an eyebrow. And the man you wronged. Brandon looked down. He didn't just expose me. He erased me. And maybe I deserved that. The episode aired. Comments exploded. Some mocked him. Others were quiet. Thoughtful. One top comment read, "You didn't get erased. You got replaced by the version of a man you pretended to be." Brandon never responded. He wouldn't appear publicly again. Not because of shame, but because the world had already moved on. And Jack? Jack wasn't watching. He was busy building something real. The invitation came in a plain black envelope, stamped with a silver seal. Jack opened it cautiously, expecting some leftover piece of drama. But it wasn't that. It was an invitation to speak, not on revenge, not even on betrayal. This time, it was about leadership. A Veteran Affairs Summit in D.C. had heard about his Digital Defense for Soldiers program. They wanted him to keynote. Jack thought about declining. Then he looked at the folded letters in his drawer. The messages from other soldiers, wives, families. All the lives touched without ever meeting him. Maybe this wasn't about him anymore. Maybe it was about the ripple. He stood on stage 3 weeks later, facing a room full of polished officers, press reps, and decorated generals. His voice was steady. "I didn't set out to lead," he said. "I just refused to stay silent." He spoke of accountability, of quiet strength, of protecting your name even when no one else will. After the speech, a colonel approached him. "You ever think about teaching full-time, Captain?" Jack looked out over the emptying chairs. "Maybe I already am." The rotors echoed like a heartbeat this time, steady, powerful, alive. Jack boarded the Black Hawk for the first time in months. Not as a passenger in pain, but as a leader on a mission. This wasn't war. This was a training flight, mentoring a group of young soldiers headed into their first deployment. He sat up front, headset on, eyes calm. The recruit beside him turned and asked, "Sir, is it true what they say about you? The wedding? The video?" Jack didn't smile. He just looked straight ahead and said, "Does it matter?" The kid blinked. "Guess not." Jack nodded. "Good. Focus on your mission." The flight lifted into open sky. Sunset bathed the clouds in firelight. And Jack, strapped in, steady, felt the one thing he hadn't in years, weightless. Not from the altitude. From freedom. The bar was low-lit, quiet, and filled with the smell of wood smoke and whiskey. No crowds. No noise. Just Jack and Alyssa, seated at a corner booth. No labels. No flirting. Just two people who survived the same storm and helped each other find dry land. Alyssa raised her glass. To the ones who lied. Jack clinked his back. And the ones who didn't. They drank in silence for a moment. Then Alyssa smiled. "You know, you could have vanished after all this. No one would have blamed you." "I thought about it," Jack said. "But then I realized maybe my job wasn't finished." "You ever gonna let someone in again?" He looked at her, calm. "I don't have to. The right person won't wait for permission. She'll just walk in and stay." She nodded. "That's a solid answer, Captain." Jack leaned back, glass in hand. "Been working on myself." Spring had arrived without drama. No texts from ghosts. No court hearings. Just green hills, a wide sky, and a house that stood tall on a piece of land Jack had bought 6 months ago. He built it himself. Slowly. Room by room. No one helped him design it. He knew what peace looked like now, and it wasn't granite countertops or Instagram kitchens. It was quiet. A porch. A strong door. A view that didn't lie. A delivery truck pulled up that morning. Final furniture drop. As Jack signed the receipt, the driver looked at him closely. "You that guy from the story?" Jack paused. "I'm a lot of stories," he said. The driver chuckled and drove off. Jack carried the last box inside. Set it down. Then walked to the porch, coffee in hand. The wind moved through the trees like music he finally understood. He wasn't healing anymore. He was living. The letter came in a battered tan envelope, postmarked Kabul, Afghanistan. No name on the front. Just a return address with a military code Jack recognized instantly. FB Falcon, Echo Company. He hadn't heard from anyone out there in months. He sliced the envelope open with his old folding knife and unfolded the page. The handwriting was messy, blocky, but clear enough to feel real. "Captain Malone, I was in the back row during your base seminar, the one about digital defense. I didn't say anything. I was one of the quiet ones. 3 weeks after that, I got an email from someone trying to impersonate my wife. Tried to pull bank info. Claimed she needed help. I remembered your exact words. I didn't click anything. I called her instead. She was fine. The email was fake. Sir, you saved us. Not from bombs. From betrayal. I don't know your full story. I heard whispers. But however you got to that podium. I'm glad you did." Private Daniels. Jack folded the letter slowly, running his fingers along the creases like it was something sacred. He stood from his desk and walked out to the porch. The wind was softer that day, lighter. He sat down, looking at the sky that had once carried him into war, and later, into her wedding. And now? Now it just carried letters from places that still needed someone like him. He looked out at the land, then back at the letter. He didn't feel proud. He felt steady. And sometimes that was better. Jack was finishing his second cup of black coffee when the knock came at the door. It wasn't loud, just there. He glanced at the clock, 9:47 a.m. Too early for deliveries. No guests expected. He opened the door. There she was. Alyssa. Plain jeans. Ponytail. No makeup. Just a folded smile and a file under her arm. Jack blinked once. You lost. She held up the file. Got an email from a nonprofit in Colorado. They want us to co-author a workshop curriculum. Said you ghosted them. Jack stepped aside, letting her in. I don't ghost. I just pace. She looked around the house. This yours? Every inch. It's peaceful. That's the idea. They stood there a moment. No awkwardness, no tension. Just shared understanding. Why'd you really come? He asked. Alyssa took a slow breath. Because I realized something. He waited. I'm not looking for fireworks anymore. Or drama. Or some headline love story. Jack raised an eyebrow. And I just want to be around someone who doesn't lie. Doesn't fold. Someone I can build with. Jack didn't smile. But his voice softened. You want coffee? Always. She stepped out to the porch while he moved toward the kitchen. She didn't need permission to be there. She belonged there. From the porch, she called out. You think they'll ever forget? The wedding video. The legend. Jack poured 2 mugs. Let him talk, he said. I'm done living for the reaction. He stepped outside, handed her a mug. They sat. 2 chairs. 1 silence. No need to explain anything anymore. The world had moved on. So had they. But this moment? It was exactly where the story was meant to land. The sun was setting again over the wide stretch of land Jack called home. The same porch. The same cup of coffee. But something in the air had shifted. He wasn't waiting anymore. Not for closure. Not for revenge. Not even for peace. He'd already earned it. Inside the house, Alyssa laughed at something playing on the TV, something dumb. Probably a military comedy that poked fun at exactly the kind of men they'd both known. Jack leaned against the porch post, watching the wind move across the trees. It used to remind him of deployment, of things coming toward him, of warnings in the distance. Now it just looked like freedom. He'd spent a year undoing a betrayal that should have broken him. Instead, it made him unshakable. He'd exposed a man who hid behind a badge, unmasked a woman who rewrote loyalty as convenience. And he never raised his voice to do it. Only his standards. Alyssa stepped outside, barefoot, arms crossed for warmth. You're quiet, she said. I've said everything I needed to say. She smiled, sat beside him. We did it, huh? No. We lived it. And that was bigger. Jack looked up at the sky, stars cutting through the dusk like silent reminders. Somewhere, someone was still being lied to. Some soldier was sitting on the edge of a bunk, holding a phone, trying to breathe through betrayal. To that man, to that woman, Jack had only one message. It's not about what they took from you. It's about what they didn't break. A year ago, Jack arrived at a wedding in a Black Hawk. Uniform crisp. Eyes cold. Heart full of unanswered questions. Now, he woke up in a bed he built, next to someone who didn't flinch at silence. With no camera crews, no internet theories, no revenge left to serve. Just purpose. He spent the day on his land, fixing a busted fence, checking the soil, listening to a podcast on veteran-owned startups. It was simple, but it was his. That night, he posted one final video. No edits, no dramatic music, just him, sitting at his desk. One take. Some of you know me as the guy who showed up at a wedding in a chopper, the guy who dropped a truth bomb and walked out. He looked into the lens, calm. But that's not who I am anymore. He took a deep breath. I'm not here to be a viral clip. I'm here to remind you, when someone breaks your trust, don't try to be louder than them. He leaned forward. Just be better. He let the silence sit, then asked, tell me, what moment in your life made you rebuild everything from the ground up? And where are you watching this from? Drop it in the comments. I want to see how far this message reaches. He smiled, for real this time. Oh, And if this hit somewhere real for you, you already know what to do. Don't just like. Don't just share. Send it to the version of you who needed this a year ago. He ended the video. No dramatic outro. No fireworks. Just a man, finally grounded, because he knew he'd never be broken again. The end.